So you got it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what we're looking at here basically is just we're looking at a window that comes up with all your recently opened files. This is something almost every program is doing these days. However, we don't have a whole lot going on yet. Over here, this is where they would be if we had recent files. Also, your Creative Cloud. We don't have this functionality, just in the scope of the class that we're having tonight. But it is useful if you're doing a lot of Adobe stuff and you subscribe and you have all that. You do get quite a bit of storage with that. I guess, for example, I pay Apple $2.99 a month for 200 gigs or something, which is a good deal, but it's nice that they throw some storage in with their when you rent their software from them. Up here in the top right, this would be like your ID and your sign-on with Adobe, so you'd have your little avatar up there. But don't worry about that. We're just going in as sort of a generic class account, which is fine. So we're gonna actually create a new document here. We're gonna create a document from scratch. So I want you to click the Create New button, and then you're gonna see another new document wizard up here. And for any of you that have used InDesign in the past, back before the CC days, they also had one of these. It looked a little bit different. It's basically helping you set up your new document. Like, what kind of new document do we want? What's it for? How big is it? What's it look like? All that kind of stuff. So that's what we would decide in here. We're not going to necessarily switch all the buttons, but I am going to kind of talk about a little bit about what they do individually, real fast, and then we'll create our document. So first off, you've got some quick starts, maybe based off documents you created before, templates, if you will. And you can create and save your own templates in the future, so you wouldn't have to spend that time setting it all back up again. And there's, of course, plenty you can download from the almighty cloud, if you wish. But we're gonna just manually go in and do this from scratch. So recent and saved aren't really gonna do us much good. But if we go over here to print, we'll get some good options. InDesign does do web. I nor my colleagues are web designers, so we don't really function on that. We don't focus on that functionality. Although it can be helpful for web, you're basically just organizing imagery for the web, is my understanding. It's not exactly like a web developer, webmaster type tool, to my knowledge, although it can be integrated into that. We're also not going to worry about mobile right now. We're just doing a print document. So I think everyone in here knows what a print document is. But what does an InDesign excel at when it comes to print document? Because Photoshop can make you a print document all day long, right? Multi-page, as you'll see tonight, is super useful in InDesign. And then also, all the options you have with text. And not just a bit of text, but large volumes of text. InDesign cannot be beat. It's a quirky program. It's got a lot of weird quirks in it and kind of odd, you wouldn't think it would happen, non-intuitive traits, I guess you could say. One of the reasons for that is probably because it was not originally developed by Adobe. It was developed by Macromedia, and then they bought them. Macromedia also made Dreamweaver, Flash, and Fireworks. So enough lecture time here. So here's some options that we have here. We've got a name we could give it. So let's call it class. And what this is going to be is our InDesign document, .ind, right? Or is it INDD? I can't remember now. But it's going to create an InDesign document, which I'll repeat this multiple times as it becomes more and more important. An InDesign document contains links provided for lots of other documents, okay? So just to give you a for example, if you're not familiar with this, you may have an InDesign document, and it may not be that big, it may be, say, 20 pages, say it's like 200 megabytes, and it's got about 10 pages per page. So, sorry, 10 photos per page. So you're looking at about 200 photos. If you've linked all those photos in there, those photo files aren't actually in part of that document. So if you just took the document out of the folder everything was in, but left the photos, moved it to another computer and opened it up, your photos will not be there. When you're doing InDesign, you got to package it all together. It's like organs inside a living body system. It's all got to stay together. That includes fonts, believe it or not. Now, of course, your basic fonts are going to be on just about every computer. But if you've downloaded special fonts, you need to keep those connected to it. Keep them in a folder. So, yes?
I'm sorry, just let you finish your sentence.
Well, the way I recommend to work in InDesign, there's probably a different way if you're clouding everything, but I would think it's similar. I like to put everything in a folder for that project that includes everything inside it, including the fonts, and of course the document itself. And then when I have to move that around, I move the folder, not the file, but the folder itself. So
my question is, one of my coworkers used to do our newsletters for us.
Yeah.
And she gave me all the pictures and all the fonts through Google Drive. I then shared them with myself, because I have access to the Google Drive, shared them with myself. Some of them are TF or TFF files, the font type.
TIFF, yeah.
TIFF. But some of them are .dms, and I can't seem to get them, and I don't know how to get them to come over. They say they won't import. There's an error.
I'll have to.
But they were paid for fonts.
Oh, they're fonts. They're not OTF.
No, they're fonts.
I'd have to look into that then. There might be some kind of. You might have to log in somewhere to access them or something like that, or unlock them. I'm not sure. I'm not really familiar with DMS, but OTF is a good one to get if you're on a Mac.
Yeah.
I think that's open type format or open type font. I don't know. I'd have to check. See me after class. But on that note, if you are into fonts and you want to get fancier, more interesting fonts, does everyone here know about dafont.com? Does anyone know about dafont? It's DAFONT.com. That's a really good place to find them. A lot of them being free. Not all, but a lot of them being free. There's also the Adobe Typekit now. And I'm not sure if that has something to do with it, but I'd have to check. That kind of thing can happen when a change of ownership is going on, you know. Okay, anyway, went off on a tangent there. I apologize. We can set up the document here. Now, I want you guys to already go ahead and pick letter as the template, sort of like our starting point. But what is this nonsense? What is P? What is this stuff? Anybody know what picas are? Anybody know what a pica is? Little fuzzy critter? No. Picas are weird. We hardly ever use them in an everyday world. But they're old print... they're old, like, letterpress units of measure. There are 6 picas in an inch, so you can see the 66, that's 11 inches. But if you don't want to work in picas, and I don't like to work in picas, I switch that to inches. Much better. Okay, I feel better already. Now, pages, you could put in 1,000 pages if you want to, but you can also add them and subtract them later, which is what I'll show you how to do. But up front, if you know you need a ton of pages, you can put that there. Facing pages, we'll see that's like a book, right? Left and right page. Turn the page, you got another left and right, which was the back of the other page's right side. That we'll leave checked, but you don't have to do it that way. It could be like a calendar, right? Page, turn it, okay? All right. We're going to leave columns where they are, but you have options to have more. Column gutter, that's the space between the columns. We're just going to leave that. And if you really want to, you can get some more advanced options down here with the bleed and the slug. Margins as well.
What's a slug?
You know, I looked it up one time, and now I can't even remember. I think it's what gets cut off. but I'll have to double check. Because of course when you do full bleed is ink all the way up to the edge. But most of the time to get that, you have to chop some off. Most printers, like that we have here in the library, for instance, or you probably have at home, they can't print all the way up to the edge. You're going to have like white border around everything. So, but the margins are definitely going to be in there, and default is a 1/2 inch, and we're going to go with that. So, any other questions before we move on? All right, cool. I'm going to hit create, and now I have, oh gosh, I've never seen this question pop up before. Let's use Photoshop. I've never seen that option before in my life, but I am a hotkey shortcut fan, so I may mention those as we work tonight. Okay, everybody got a nice blank page up in front of them? Yeah? Okay. I take silence as yes, so I'm gonna move on. No, you're fine. If you don't say anything, you're saying yes. Which, all that means is if you need to say no, say it. Okay. Here's our document. The pink and the purple lines, those are the margins. They're not going to print. They're just imaginary guidelines put in there by Adobe for us. Right? I want to talk briefly about the layout of the program. So here, right in the middle, this is the workspace, the stage, your desktop, whatever you want to call it. This is where the action happens. This is where your document is for you to look at. On the absolute left is your toolbar. Everybody that's ever used an Adobe bit of software is probably familiar with this. There's a lot of tools over here. We're going to look at every single tool in detail tonight. And then you guys can go home at 3 a.m. The thing that's tricky, we'll learn about some of these. I think what is trickiest is that they group them together sometimes. So any of these tools with a little triangle in the lower right corner, that means there's more than one tool there. So if you go to the 6th tool down, which is the type tool, you can get to the sister tools, is what I like to call them, 2 ways. You can right-click, and they will come up, or you can hold your left button down on them, and they will come up, and you grab the one you want. For example, this rectangle tool, we're gonna use all 3 of these tonight. But right now, it's the rectangle tool. But if I want the ellipse tool, I just hold down, click it, and now I'm going to be making circular elliptical shapes. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, except I don't have that in my menu on the left.
You don't have a toolbar.
I have the toolbar, I don't have the circular one.
Right. Do you have the rectangle or the polygon though?
Yeah.
No, it's just hiding underneath it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You gotta bring it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's not how I would have done it, but hey. That's why I'm not working at Adobe headquarters right now. Yes. So only one will be apparent on top at any one time, but they're all there. You can really only use one tool at a time anyway, so it works out, but it's sort of confusing. Okay, let's draw our attention over to, well, actually, before I go over there, there's some very important stuff here at the bottom, below the last tool, which is the zoom tool. There's a color picker, and you've got solids and which are fills, and outlines, which are strokes. I'll talk a lot more about that in a minute. If you've ever used Adobe Illustrator much, you're familiar with these probably. Okay, and that's the left side toolbar in a nutshell. Over here on the right, these are what they call the application menus. Now, there are a lot of these. So, briefly, I'll explain. The reason these exist now is just to make things easier, more easy to interface with and interact with. Because in the old days of computing, everything a program can do is somewhere up in this chain, this menu, right? But this thing can get vast, right? Like there can be a lot of options, a lot of things that can pop out. It gets complex. And what they have done is a lot of things that you could go up and click through these menus to achieve, you could just go over here and click a button to achieve the same thing. So they're usually just options. They're not the same as a tool, but they're options that you can apply to your tools or how things work or how things are set up. There's a ton of them though, and they're not always out at once. It's something to take note of. If you had them all out at once, your whole screen would be completely filled with nothing but application menus. So they actually have different categories of them. There are different suites, if you will. Right now, you guys should be on Essentials, but just briefly, I can change this for you. Let's go down to Typography for me, and click that real quick, and you'll notice your menus have changed. Now, these are the collapsed or minimized version of the menu. Can everybody see this little, let me get my laser pointer for you guys, this little rewind button right here where I'm shining my laser? Everybody see that? Click that guy. Okay, and it will expand them and you can see them again. And you can see that these are different windows over here. It's a different group of windows. And we can also see that these are all associated with text, which makes sense, right? This is the typing set. Now, if you have, let's go back to Essentials real quick here. All right, so everybody should see these, and these are the main ones we're going to be using tonight. You should have a Pages for sure, okay? And then you should also have color and stroke down there. We're going to look at all those. And swatches are up as well. And we may bring out a couple others. Now, how would you do that? Well, one of the tabs up here in the top menu is Window. Okay? And Window is where you would go to bring down any new ones. So, just for demonstration's sake, let's go down to, bring one out, let's go down to Type in Tables. Which you can see there's a lot of them, right? And let's bring down Character by clicking on it like that. Now we have the character window and we can move these guys around. You can actually arrange these however you might want. You can drop them up into to share spaces with some of your other menus, like so. Okay.
Thank you. I'm too sleepy to see this right
Okay.
It's been a very long day.
I understand. Okay, well, have a good night. Get some rest. Okay. Everybody else doing okay, though? Okay. So you can move those around. You can customize this as much as you want. You could have all the menus that you like to use, and then you can save that up here where we changed it from Essentials, and you could go to New Workspace and, name it, and then you could always get back to it at any time. So, yeah. And that's true for most Adobe programs, I think, if not all. Okay. Last but not least, along the top here, this quite large area up here, that is a very useful space. I'm not sure exactly what Adobe refers to it as, but it's sort of like an MVP, greatest hits. It's just like the most useful tools that you might have under any given moment. If you switch tools, like say you go down to the type tool, you'll get a different set than you would for some other tools sometimes. Although mine's not seeming to be changing right now, but there we go. See how it changed there from that to that. So type's got a different set, but a lot of quick little functions like flipping something, inverting something, rotating something, We'll look at it as the night progresses. All these things are almost, I think all of them are somewhere else, like in the toolbar or somewhere over in the application menu, but they just put them up here, right in the middle, right up front for speed. Just make it easier and more convenient for us. Okay. Any questions? That's your workspace. Okay. Don't be scared. I know there's a lot of buttons, but you know, we all ride in airplanes and they have a lot of buttons, and almost always we're fine. So we don't have to go in and start clicking every button. So okay. Well, let's create something, shall we? I've chit-chatted and blabbed on long enough, I think. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do before we create something, the default setup, when you start up the program, your color is nothing. Your color is invisible, and you've got a black stroke. So that's going to be kind of boring and hard to see. So the first thing I want to do, we're going to pick a fill color, okay? There's a lot of different ways to do it. The first way I want to show you, though, I think is the easiest. Right up front and center, right in the middle. Does everybody see where my mouse is dancing around? That's your fill color. We need to pick something. So let's click the arrow and let's just pick one of these colors for the moment. Now, it's crazy, but these are the only colors you can use. And I'm kidding. But they just start out that way. I'll show you how to add more colors in, but InDesign really loves to make the colors in the list form. That's just how it is. So it's all about saving colors and using specific Pantones and things like that. So look, you don't have to pick the blue, but you just pick one. Doesn't matter. All right. We can leave the black stroke on there. It's not hurting anything. It's nice and thin. Okay, and let's go over and let's pick the rectangle tool for me. It's about halfway down on the toolbar. We mentioned it earlier. Everybody got that okay? All right, we're going to move on. How many of you guys, just so I know, how many of you guys use either PowerPoint or Publisher or both occasionally? Okay, that's similar. That might be a close relation for you guys to InDesign. Especially the way that we're going to make these shapes. You just click, drag, pull, and then let go, and you've got your shape. Go ahead and make a couple, all right? Don't be scared. You can also create them over in the gray area. What's up with that? Well, think of it like this. The gray area is your entire desk. The white area is the paper itself. So if we hit print, these two rectangles will print, but not this guy, okay? You can see you can make them all different kinds of shapes. Go ahead and make a few. What if you want a different color? There's a couple ways to change it. You could go back up here to the one we just looked at. You could change it. But it depends on which one that you're currently engaged with or that you select. Oh, mine keeps going back to blue.
If you wanted the whole background to be one color, would you just draw a big rectangle over it?
I usually do, yep. But you may wish to separate that with layers or lock it so you don't have to constantly, yeah. But no, that's a totally legitimate way to do it. You could use a photo background, same way.
Is there a way to just make the whole background colored without doing it this way? Like, is there a way to say, I want my background to be this?
Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to check.
Maybe a master page?
Now, what's that?
Would you do that on a master page or something?
It's possible you could, yeah.
I mean, I never have.
No, we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll talk about master pages. Yeah, anything that you would want to tumble out to everything else, you could, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I'm sorry. I don't know. Basically, though, these objects that we're making, these shapes, right now they're colored squares, but I kind of want you to think of these as just like units. Okay, they can change into anything else. They could change into a photo. They could change into a text box. They could change into text over a photo. I mean, all different kinds of options here for you. So for right now, they're just solid fills of color, but they can be all kinds of stuff. But they're independent little units, okay? And now that we've made a few, I need to promptly introduce you all to the Ulta tool, okay? This is like the tool to rule all tools. You know, like the Game of Thrones? This is like the tool that sits on that throne, okay? None of the other tools can do much without this guy. And that is the Select tool, which is a black arrow. It's the very first tool. Can't forget that. Right up top, number 1, okay? This is the Elvis Presley of all the tools. It's the king. Now with this tool, go ahead and click on some of the shapes that you've made, okay? Obviously, its namesake, it selects them, but so much more than that. It's also the Move tool, okay? There's not really a Select tool in Photoshop, but there is a Move tool. It's in the same place, does the same thing in that context. So click and drag on your shapes, and you're moving them around. I like to think of the Select tool as like it's your hand, and all the other tools are things that you can pick up. It's what made, well, really any of the primates you want to pick, but humans especially. The fact that we've got the thumbs, we can grab and craft things. It's very helpful. You know, parrots can use their beaks and their feet kind of like that, but not quite as well as we can. Okay, so do you see these green and pink lines shooting all over the place like Star Wars or something? Those are guidelines. They pop up when you get near the edge of something, when you line it up. It's just a assistance thing. Now, do you have that in CS5? Okay, well, at one point,
I think yes, I do.
way back in the day, I think I learned on CS2 or 3, it didn't have it yet. You can turn that off. We're going to leave it on, but you could turn that off if it was annoying you. But it lines up with center lines and edges, okay? So moving is one thing. You can also move them over top of each other. And I'm going to talk about how you can change that out. That would go back to your question about the background a little bit. It's kind of related to that. It's like, what's the front to back order? So I'll get there.
Because like right now I have a layout, and we decided we want to put a background on it, but I have everything laid out.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how to insert it in the back.
You can do that.
Without having to move everything off, put it on.
Layers. Layers.
Yeah, I just didn't know how to insert it to the back.
There's a way. You could do it that way too. I like to create like a dedicated layer to the background that everything's going to go on top of. You know, it's never going to be on top. Just show through the cracks, sort of. But I'll show you how to do that. First, though, I just want to briefly talk about. See the white squares there? If you haven't already, drag those. This tool also scales things. This tool does a lot, guys. So any of those white squares, you can click and drag and stretch around.
This is the biggest arrow I have ever seen.
Arrow?
Yeah, the thing is huge.
I'm not sure. What arrow were we talking about?
Just, you know, your mouse.
Oh. Take a look at yours then.
It's huge. It covers up things you can't see over here when you're on them. See how big it is?
This big, yeah. Somebody's changed that. So we could possibly go in and fix that. I think it's in the preference. You guys can also rotate your shapes with that tool. was probably someone short-sighted. That's what it is.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Oh, I got it.
It makes that way on everything, so just this program.
It's excessive.
I just figured out how to do the layer and make it go to the back
Oh, good.
directly, or make it go in the front. I mean, I know how to do it and click it and make it go, but to create one and
There you go.
Oh my gosh, thank you, that's so much better.
Yeah, do it. So there's
Is that crazy?
Is it still too big or is that good?
That's better, I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody was probably just
Wow, that was huge.
had trouble seeing.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
I can do it now.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick here. Back in business. I don't want to spend too much more time on it, but this tool can also rotate. You got to be just outside of one of the corners to do it. You can get to some weird angles, man. Now, if you hold down Shift, it's nice because you'll stick to 45s and 90s. Okay. Now, what about stacking order? So that was what, sorry, what was your name?
Stevie.
Hey, it's my name.
I know, I remember.
Yeah, you had a class from me a while back, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so what Stevie was talking about is front to back order. So you can see how, if you put one over the other, you can see how they overlap. So do that. Have one on top, one behind. Okay, and I want you to go to the one that's on the top. If you right-click, and you go down to Arrange, again, right-click on the top one, go to Arrange, and then if you go to this very bottom option, Send to Back, it puts it back there. And the opposite of that would be Bring to Front. So say I wanted this blue one on top, right-click Arrange, and Bring to Front. The other two options, just move them one step back and forth from one another, which is kind of weird, but maybe not the best way to do it. The default order that they are in is just the order that they were created in, with the newest on top, oldest on the bottom.
I also found if you go to layers on the toolbar on the right,
Yeah.
if you go to layers and then you select the layer you want, you can drag it.
On this layer here?
Yeah.
Yes, you
Okay.
can, yes.
So if you have a whole list of them, you can select it and drag it up or drag it down.
Yep. Yeah, it's different than Photoshop if you're familiar with Photoshop, because every little object kind of lives on its own layer anyway. But you can make bigger layers. So technically all these pieces have a spot in hierarchy. But you can create other layers that supersede that even. So I will come back to that though, if we have time. Remind me, and I'll show you guys how to do that. But let's get some more stuff up here. I want to wait when we have more things to play with, so it'll look better. Okay. All right. And if you want to select multiple things, there's a couple ways. Okay. You can hold down the Shift button, and as you go through, get a bigger selection, then you can start changing that selection, right? You can start stretching it. Do all the same things that you did with the single. You can group them. You can ungroup them. Okay. If we group this, that means that if I clicked on one, I would automatically select the whole. Okay. You can also click and drag a box around stuff, like so. Grab everything inside. Like that. Okay. Any questions on that? And then the last thing I want to show you, how do you get rid of something? How do you kill it? How do you clear it? Either the delete button or the backspace button. I mean, they're kind of one and the same on a Mac. If you hit that, goodbye. It's history. Any questions on any of that? All right, let's learn a new tool. It's not that different, but it is fun. We've also got the elliptical tool, all right, and the polygon tool that can create different shapes. I think to change the number of sides on the polygon tool, yeah. So if you don't want to make only hexagons, say you want to make an octagon, over on the toolbar, double click right on the tool thumbnail, and then you could alter the number of sides. Hit OK. And then it actually changed the one that I had, but the next one I made, see, it's got more sides. I mean, there's two sides to every story, but double click right on the tool in the toolbar, the thumbnail for the tool, for the polygon tool, and it'll pop up a little menu. Does the same thing for a star. Okay. Just real quick, let me talk about grouping. So say you wanted to group an object or objects, go ahead and arrange them in a way that you like. Kind of looks like a dragonfly or something. I like that. Okay. And get them positioned how you want them. Because remember, this is a layout program, right? It's all about where something is in relationship to the other things. Okay? Select all the different objects you want to group. This is real simple. And then there's a place you can do it up in the menu, but I like to just right-click on any of the individual objects that you selected and then go down to Group. And then, boom, it's got a dotted line around it, which means it is a group. You can ungroup it. It's the same way. You just go back down and pick the different option for ungrouping. It's under right-click.
You should click on object.
Yep, you can click on any of the different ones in that group, and then go down and, well, mine says ungroup because it's currently grouped, but it's kind of in the middle of that menu. You got to have multiple objects selected, though.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, because it's already a group. So. Believe it or not, all of these shapes are actually a group of anchor points with lines between them, right? So we'll look at that in a second. But like I could actually take this corner and pull it out and stretch it. I'll show you guys how to do that in just a moment. Everybody good with the grouping so far? Awesome. Okay. All right. So if we go down to a new tool here, I want to show you. I want to show you guys. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's learn how to color things just with the select tool. So if you click a tool and then you can pick any other color, but I want you to look over here. We were getting colors up here, but I want to show you a different place. If you want to look on the lower right, let's look at the wonderful world of the color picker of InDesign. It's not like Photoshop, unfortunately. So over here in the lower right, does everyone have a color and a swatches menu? All right. So on the color menu, I want you to go over to these parallel lines over here. Everybody see these? Each each one of the windows has a little button like this up in the top right corner, and it's a very important little button. It's sort of like the menu for the window itself. And if you click that, I want you guys to go down. Let's go to RGB sliders, and that's a little better. Now, have an object selected, right? And you can do a couple things here. You can change these sliders. What is this R? What is R and G and B? Anybody know? Very good. Okay. Bonus question. What about CMYK? Yep. You got it right. Black. K is black, actually. I don't like this way much, but this is a way you could change the color. Okay. Now below that, you should also have a hue strip. Does everybody have one of those? Okay. So from left to right on the hue strip, you've got, first of all, it's nice. On the very far left, you've got none. You can click that. And notice how, because I have a black stroke, I still have something here over top of a clear square. Furthermore, if I bring that to front, see how it's overlapping, and it's also see-through. But anyway, let's keep a fill color on this. So I can click anywhere in this hue strip. It's kind of thin. I don't love that about it, but you can click anywhere in there. And then at the far right, it's got black and white, just because they're so commonly utilized. A lot going on, right? Now that's one way. I'm going to show you a couple other ways. But before I show you the other way, I want to show you this little trick. See this solid square here that's just showing us what color we have right now? That guy? If you right-click on that, add to swatches, very useful, because you don't want to lose that color if it's one you're going to use. You might as well save it to our list. So add that to swatches, and now right below, check it out. It's down there. Got its own little identity and all that stuff too.
So will it always be there, or just for that particular document?
What's that, the swatches?
That little color.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to say just that document, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because I think you can cloud these two. See this, save swatches? That would be what you would want to do to take it from one doc to the next that I know of for sure. Yeah, save swatches. But there might be a way to have them permanently or cloud them or something that I'm not familiar with. That's a good question, though. So say you were working with a document, you picked out 10, 15 new colors. I would go to save swatches, and then that's a little file that you could open up from a totally different computer using InDesign if you needed to. Because the colors are known inside the computer. They're not like a photo or something. Like every computer can make the same colors these days, anyway. If you're running InDesign, you're good. That's a good question. Okay, the other way. See, there's this little cloud button down here. So, yeah. See, it's cloud now. So, interesting you asked that question because 10 years ago you would have had to do it the old-fashioned way and like keep them on a flash drive or something. But now. Yep. Okay. Got to have the internet, though. If you double-click on the fill color thumbnail, right there, and you got to do it in the color menu. Sorry. You could also do it at the bottom of the toolbar, and I think you can also do it in this guy in the top. So you got 3 places, actually 4 places showing you the same exact thing. But if you double click on it, you get InDesign's version of the color picker. I don't like it. I really don't. I greatly prefer the one in Photoshop, but I do want to show you that it's here. It is better than that little strip that they had. Okay, so inside here, you can click anywhere in this 2D space here on the square. And then you've got a slider over here on the other side. You you theoretically can get every color in here, but I want you to play with it. You'll see, like, what in the heck is the rhyme or reason to this? See, like, I can get a hue slider, you know. You can save the color by clicking that button there. Also, you can see all the specific values for that color. Lab color, that's a whole weird thing I don't really quite understand. Let me show you something. It's interesting because color on a computer is in 3 dimensions. I know this is weird. We don't think of it that way most of the time, but it's in 3 dimensions. These books, which were part of an art project, no page is the same because it's 3D space. You know, you've got up, down, left, and right, forward, and back to change color. It's like inside that cube, you're somewhere in there. That is how they manage to have all those billions of colors that they talk about when they're trying to sell you a TV. It's digital color. It's a little bit different than actual color. One of the reasons for that is, you know, there is no yellow. Somehow red and green can make it look yellow to our eyes. I don't quite understand the tech behind that, but I do find this fascinating that your colorscape, your palette, if you will, is actually a big cube. Okay, that's kind of why this one's looking so crazy. These are all different pages in that book. Photoshop does it a different way. I think it's a little easier to use, but anyhow, that's a way to get a color. Okay. Now, anybody in here familiar with the eyedropper tool? Yeah. Now, it can copy more than just a color in InDesign. It can copy styles and all kinds of different things. But if you had, say we had a photo in here, and we don't yet, but we will in a minute, you could grab a color off that photo just by using that eyedropper tool. Anybody never used the eyedropper tool? Okay, everybody's used it? That's good. Okay, so it's here too. All right. Any questions? All right. So we've talked a whole lot about the fill color, but I want to talk about we need to talk about the stroke color. So let me show you the zoom tool. Very bottom tool. It looks like a magnifying glass. Start clicking and you will zoom in. And as you zoom in, you'll probably notice that you've got these strokes on everything. We've got this very thin, basic stroke all around everything. So, 2 kinds of colors in InDesign. Because what everything inside a vector program is made up of is nothing but a giant connect the dots. Okay? There are anchor points and then the vectors or the paths between them. Okay? So once we're zoomed in, well, I guess that begs the question, how do you zoom out? My favorite way is to hold down the Option key and then it switches to the zoom out. Okay? But I want you to zoom in on the corner, one of the corners of the object that you have selected. And you don't have to get quite as close as me, but about there. We'll be able to see it much better. Now, these imaginary lines, they have no color. Well, they're not imaginary, but these invisible lines, which are paths, they don't have a color, they don't have nothing. They don't have a width or a thickness. They're infinitely precise. You guys remember back in geometry class, a point in space is infinitely minute, okay? So it's like math. Now, if they form a perimeter and they come all the way back around, they can have a fill color inside them. Think of it like a picture frame. Think of it like when you're blowing bubbles through the little thing, or a trampoline, right? Without the perimeter around the trampoline, it wouldn't work. Or a snare drum, okay? All these things, your eardrum for that matter. Okay, so fills live inside those enclosures. Strokes literally live on the path itself. They ride the line. So they are a lot like a frame, if you will, okay? So if we, first of all, let's thicken that stroke up, okay? Just to kind of see how this works. So up in the top in the center, you should see right, just to the right of the fill and the stroke options, you should see the stroke size area. And if you start clicking up, that thing should start thickening up on you, like that. So the stroke is measured in point size, and point size is a relative size. It's not the literal size. It's not literally 10 anything. It's, you know, in the scope of things that we're in, it's a point size, like text, just like text. So you got to be careful when you play around with it. I want to show you something right now. You guys stay zoomed in, but I'm going to show you something that's kind of funny. What I mean by that is, see how fat they are? Okay, say I want to reduce the size of the rectangle, and I do so, maybe about half as big, quarter as big, but check it out. My stroke stayed the same size. If I keep getting smaller, see how it stays the same size. And when I get down to that small, I can make it to where it's entirely black because nothing but the stroke is shining through, okay? Any questions on that? Okay. I'm going to zoom back in here. You can change the color of your stroke, same way we would change the fill. Any of the 4 places you have the fill color, you've also got the stroke color, which looks like a hollow rectangle. And if you double click on that hollow rectangle, you get the color picker, and you can start picking around, just hit OK, and it changes it. Now, everybody good with that? Another thing you can do when you're inside the program is you can roll your mouse wheel. When you're zoomed in, that will scroll you up and down. And if you need to move side to side, there's 2 options. There's the hand tool, and the hand tool is right above the zoom tool. It's directly on top of it right there. And when you have the hand tool, you can just click and drag around your screen. It's a lot like using an iPad or something with your finger. All right? But another way is you can stay on any tool you want, and if you also hold down, if you hit the space bar, it turns into the hand tool for you at any point. Excuse me. And then you can click and drag. Sorry about that. Whew. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of stuff here. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Now there are more options than just this in Illustrator, but you do have some more options for your stroke. So to look at those, I want us to go over to the stroke window over to the right. And over there, you've got some options for how your stroke is going to behave. Does everyone find that window okay? So the first one we know that makes it thicker or thinner. Cap is not really going to show up on this kind of object, but the join will. I want you to look at those different options there. See how you can have like a sliced corner, or a sharp corner, or a rounded corner. Also alignment. By default it rides the line, but you can have it all inside or all outside. And in fact, you can do one of those age-old, whoa, way too far. You know the old trick, which is larger? Goodness, what? Okay. Command 0 will get you centered. Make a copy of that. Okay. I'm gonna line them up just right. Here. Okay. And let's make that one all inside. Now, which one of these is bigger? They're the same size. Okay. One's got its stroke outside, so it looks bigger, but it's not. And if I have one that's sort of on default, so now we have each kind. So it's up to you where that stroke sets. Okay. And then last but not least, there's some options for that stroke and how it looks. So if you see type there, by default it's a solid line. You got options, people. You can change that. You see? These can be good for graphic design, adding interest to them. Because I just want to remind you, I know it just looks like a bunch of shapes that we have right now. Remember, these can be text boxes, these can be borders or frames for photos. They have a lot of different uses. Okay? So that's kind of fun. And if you get really into it, you can actually go in there and manually create your own Morse code down there if you want. ... dash, right? SOS. But we're not going to go quite that far into it yet. But you do have a lot of options. Like you could even have a gap cut, so you could even have it checker if you start the gap color on. It's kind of cool. Very Cat in the Hat. Yep. Remember Cat in the Hat scarf? It was like that, stripey. All right. Any questions? Okay, we got a lot more to cover. I'm going to go on. Okay. Now, I want to use this rectangle here because it's it'll be easy to kind of see things on this, I think. Okay, so so far today we've been using the main select tool, which is the direct select tool, the black arrow. However, there's a white arrow. If any of you have taken the Illustrator class, Reagan, have you had the Illustrator class before? No? Okay, so has anyone in here ever used the white arrow?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
It's a little weird, but, so what this one does, when I click on anywhere on the square, or the rectangle, it gets all my anchor points, all 4 of them, right? But if I go to the white arrow, it can get 1 at a time. Okay, so what I want you to do is click on just one corner, click and let go, and then I want you to do this. If you want to watch me, I'm going to click and pull it. And I can move 1 at a time. So this is an option that you have to make and adjust weird shapes. You don't have to have all just circled. You can have any kind of shape. It's just there's more complex ways of creating this. Okay. Anybody in here ever used the pen tool before? Yeah, it's fun, right?
It is. I was wondering actually, is there a way to convert like an anchor from corners to anything?
Yeah. Well, in Illustrator, definitely.
Yeah, I couldn't find it in here.
I think so that's convert anchor point tool.
Yeah.
Right there. Well, that's not exactly the same thing.
Where is it?
Let me see if it actually is what we're looking for. Yep, it is.
Okay.
So if you open up the pen tool to some subtools, this is kind of advanced tangent here. This one that's like a chevron at the bottom. All you gotta do is click and drag on the point. If you want to watch me, like on this purple rectangle here, I'm gonna click just on that point and pull. Click, hold, and pull, and I'll get the Bezier curves.
Okay. And it's the black. It's the okay.
It's that last one down there. So it's essentially just like Illustrator in that regard. So you can have curved edges, but when you have curved edges, they have these Beziers. This is kind of getting more advanced. If I have time to go over this, we can look at the pen tool at the end, but there's some other stuff that I absolutely must get to first. Sorry. But I may be able to come back to that, and I can show you guys the pen tool. The pen tool is like riding an unbroken horse. Once you get good at it, it's like awesome, but starting out can be challenging. It's tricky. Okay. I'm going to hit Command-0 to center it on my screen. Okay. Move those guys over here. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at photos and text. It's pretty important stuff. So, I can't show anywhere close to everything in 2 hours, but I'm going to try to show you the most critical stuff. Okay, so we got to grab a photo first. And the way InDesign works, as I've mentioned a couple times, it's a layout program. It's what you feed everything into and then combine and create something from it in the end. Okay? So let's all just jump on the internet. Goodness, guys, I'm in class. Man. Anyway, I'm going to have a talk about that. Where was I? Oh yeah, importing a photo. Okay, so let's just jump on the internet, guys. Let's go down to Safari, which is the little, looks like a compass down there. Okay, and click that. You'll go onto the internet. Okay, let's just go to a Wikipedia article. What do you guys think? Abraham Lincoln, he's cool. Was he really born in Kentucky? Was he really born in Kentucky?
Yep.
I think he was, but you never know. People they're always trying to disprove that. Okay, but that's neither here nor there for our purposes tonight. Everybody able to get to the Wikipedia article for Honest Abe? All right? So let's do two things while we're here. I want you to open up his picture, and I want you to right-click on there, and let's go down to Save Image As. Am I going too fast? Mine went to the desktop. If yours didn't, let's go straight to the desktop. It makes it really easy to find. Okay? And then just click Save. I don't need to change the name or anything. Just click Save. Okay? Everybody good with that so far? Okay. Now let's go back to InDesign. And this is how you're usually going to end up putting a photo in InDesign. It's the main best way, okay? We know where our photo is, so we're going to go up to File, and then Place. And that's going to allow us to browse for what we want to throw in here. I'm going too fast? Do you need me to go back?
I can find place.
File, Place. Mm-hmm. And then make sure it's pointing to where you save the file, which is the desktop. Okay? And then we want to go to the Abe Lincoln photo. And you could double click it or then just click open down there. And it's actually attached to your cursor because we weren't putting it in any kind of pre-prepared frame. So we put it in there, just click and drag, and it will populate your photo inside InDesign. Now, does anybody need any help, or everybody got it? Okay. Sounds like everybody got it. Okay, but here's where it gets tricky, y'all. Anyone worked with a photo in InDesign before? Yeah, so you probably already know this kind of oddity. Now, it's different than the other Adobe programs. I actually think it's super useful, though, once you get the hang of it. Now, go to your Select tool and move this picture around some. Click and drag it. Okay, well, that's pretty easy, right? All right, what's this thing in the middle, this circle? Did you click on that circle? You shouldn't have done that. Well, no, it's not the end of the world. So, when you got the photo and it has a light blue border, you're moving the whole frame of the photo itself, right? You're moving the frame that the photo lives in. Now, usually, by default, they're the same. The photo size and the frame that it's in are the same size. So you could reduce it, and if you come up to the corner and you start dragging it smaller, you're not changing the photo itself, you're changing the frame that it lives in, as long as whatever you're dragging on is of that blue color. Now, if you click on that circle in the middle, now we're actually changing the size of the photo itself. And we want to hold down what button when we resize things?
Shift.
There you go. Very good. You guys are doing really good tonight. If you hold down Shift, then you're all set. And then if you click out, you start over again. So if you click anywhere but the circle, you're going to be affecting the frame. So if I wanted a little bit of a tighter crop here, not hard, just do that. I can even tighten it further. We got to leave his bow tie in there for him. He had like a little neckerchief going on or something. Okay? But if I click right in the middle, then I can really like seriously size it up, you know. Whoops. Everybody knows Command Z, right? If you hold Shift and Option, it grows out from the center. Try that out. Holding Shift and Option. And look how you can actually move your photo by clicking on that circle. You can move the sucker around inside of that frame. Now, the reason why this, well, in some ways this is as annoying as can be, but in some other instances, this is very useful because you could strategically place different photo frames inside and then stick them in. So my best analogy, I'm an analogy guy, and my best analogy is those, they have multiple and often different size shaped mats for photographs of families and stuff. They're like 20 they hold like 20 photos, and they all have like different circles and ovals and squares. You stick the photos behind them. That's my closest. I don't know if I could find one on here, but yeah, like, well, specifically the weird ones though, but this is close, yes. Like these. Think of it in that context, okay? So that's basically what's going on, right? Okay? All right, let's try this again. This is really going to be fun for some of you guys if you've never done this before. I want you to go over here, and let's grab an ellipse tool, and let's just make an oval on our page there. All right, and then let's repeat that process. Let's go to File, Place. Let's just grab the Lincoln again. This is all just the same thing. And now, when we had that selected, he's inside the ovular frame. or ovulate. Well, I don't know. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Have any of you guys done this before? Any shape you got can be the frame for a photo. Or text, as we'll see in a minute. Anybody have trouble with that? Pretty cool, right? See that little link up there? And right there? Little link. Okay, if we go over here to the very top right, there's a panel called links. Okay? And that is how you manage where all your stuff is. Now, I would recommend if you're working with simple things, like, you know, reasonable sized documents, maybe like a calendar or a short book, I would just, like I said, compile all that into one folder. But if you're not really moving stuff around much, say you're just working off one workstation, one computer, one hard drive, you could have a folder of photos that you could source to from multiple different documents if you're using the same photo. Does that make sense? You don't have to have a different photo in every folder that you're working with. Or a logo, think of that. Now, you could also put it on a master page, which would help you as well. But that's only if you want it to show up a ton. Am I making any sense? Now, when things get weird, when things move around, there will be big old question marks. In fact, I could probably demo that for you. When it can't find the photo, that's bad for you guys. See that little question mark there? And up here? They were both counting on that to be there, man, and I just put it in the trash can. So now they're freaking out. This is not going to end well. It's remembering enough, but if I went to print that, I'm probably going to have problems. We're not done yet, but speaking of that, when you're at the end, what do you do when you're at the end? Like, what, huh? Well, say we're working on a calendar. I'm done with the calendar. I'm ready to print this baby. What do I do? Kind of. Yeah, sort of, yeah. Export's the key word I'm looking for, because if we just hit save, we're saving the InDesign project. So it's kind of like iMovie or Final Cut or video. We're just saving the project. We're saving the recipe. We're saving the batter, not the cake. We got to bake the cake to have the cake. And that's what you do at the end. Usually, most of the time, you're going to be exporting as a PDF, although there's other options. And, you know, say you were doing it for web or animation, there would be even more options. But typically, it's PDF. And that said, there are hundreds of options for how it looks and your PDF looks. But that's just something I wanted to cover before we run out of time, is at the end, when you're totally done, you always do want to save it. But you would go in and start playing with all this. And I don't really have this stuff planned into the lesson, but I will show you something at the end. There's a couple presets that are pretty useful. Now, let me rescue this guy. I'm going to put him back. Okay. Get out of my way. Okay. Now, what if I want to brighten that up? Well, it's tough if I just have InDesign. It's not a photo editor, remember? We can crop them. I could even do like that, right? But it's going to be tough to really change how the photo looks, you know? Now, what you can do is right-click, and here's what I like to do. I like to... You got to be inside and editing the actual photo. So you want it to be orange around your borders. And then if you right-click, you could go down here to say edit original or edit with. I usually go to edit with and then over to Photoshop. And when you click that, it's going to open it up in Photoshop. Now, wouldn't it be nice if it was all just in one program? But it's not. Adobe likes money too much, okay? Just like why there'll be a Star Wars movie every 2 years for the rest of our lives. Bad president. This is what they do to him down south now. They're like, no. I'm just teasing. But let's be nicer. Let's be nicer. Let's make him look like he's about to play some football or something. Or paint. I don't know. I'm just using the brush tool to change it. But check it out now. If I go back to InDesign, again, this is a lot like working with a video. Even though I've changed that file, he's going to look the same until I go in here and I say save. Yes. And then drum roll, please. Cool, right? So it's all about links and relationships, stuff like that. Especially when it comes to photo editing. Now, what I'm going to show you guys next is text. And text, you could do almost everything in InDesign. You do run into some weird stuff when you're copying and pasting from the web or from Microsoft Word and stuff like that. But there are importing options for those. But we are just going to do some copying and pasting here. So let's go to the text tool real fast. The type tool, rather. You have to save the photo if you changed it. Otherwise, it's, yeah. Because if you don't do that, it's still the old version until you hit save. Then it updates it. Then it's changed it. So yes, yeah.
I'm sorry, can you show me how you got it to open in Photoshop again?
Okay.
I missed something that's not working for me.
Okay, sure. Now, firstly, you got to click on the circles.
So you have the orange border.
Yes, and then you want to right-click, and then go down to Edit With, and it should have it on the list already.
See, I don't have the edit with.
Click that circle in the middle.
I have.
You don't have Edit With?
Yeah.
Do you have Edit Original?
No.
Huh. And you do have an orange border?
Yeah, when I have the orange border, I don't get it, and if I have just a blue border, I don't get it.
Well, I'll check that out. That is strange. Look for it here. Okay.
My picture's a little different than yours.
Oh, you're that one up in the top left?
Yeah, I was just gonna open that one.
And right-click for me. Put the picture somewhere. Right-click to the right, not quite on this one. Picture.
Is it maybe because it's on
Try
the page?
a different picture for me. I don't know.
So it should come up
Something
with
in
edit
the
with. Okay.
preferences or something. I don't know. That's weird. Those are on your hardware, right? I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You have it too? Okay. Well, don't worry about it. It's kind of advanced stuff. I honestly usually don't even bring it up in the intro class, but I think it's up here in preferences. You can turn that option on and off, so that might be what it is.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Let's go to text though. So this tool here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, looks like a little T. And this is a lot like PowerPoint or Publisher again, okay? So let's make a title, like a heading. I'm going to drag this box up the top. And I'm going to type in a title, Abraham Lincoln. Now, that's kind of small and in the wrong spot, but I'm going to show you how to change that. And my favorite place to go, there's a character window that's got a lot of this stuff on it, but remember that place that I mentioned that's got a lot of great, useful tools on it? I'm going to go there first. Any questions on that? Okay, so up here we're going to do a lot of fun stuff. So Minion Pro, that is our font. Oh wait, you got to highlight it and then you can change it. My bad. Or have the box selected. Yes. No. Highlight your text, I'm sorry. And then you can change all kinds of things about it, like its font. More especially though, let's change the font size to something big. There we go. Actually, it doesn't fit. And I'm going to talk more about text that doesn't fit here in a second. Let's reduce that size down a little bit. There's lots of different stuff we can do to this text. Okay. We'll look at several. We can stretch it. If you want to stretch it vertically, you can stretch it horizontally. Let's say we want to change the color. That's up here. Text has a stroke and a fill too. So say I want it red. Okay, it's red now. Highlight it again. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to make the stroke blue. Hard to see. But I can increase the size of the stroke in the same way as before. And now I have like an outline. It's very easy to outline text in InDesign. It's fun too. And definitely want to do center alignment. Otherwise it's just going to look silly up there. And I can move this around with my move tool, just like everything else we've been using. Any questions on any of that so far?
Change the stroke
What part of it? The size or the color?
again. Size.
Size is still down over here in the stroke window.
Awesome.
I don't know why they don't put it up there. They really should, but let's see here. We're just going to see if there was like an external editor option. I don't see it, so I'll try to look into that later though. Okay, that's simple text, you know, just a few lines, right? Let's make some more complex text. So what I want you to do is go back to that article on Lincoln, please. Oh, too far. Okay. Oh. And let's copy a lot of this text here, if we can. Whoops. Maybe just this first segment, if we can. And hopefully not all that stuff to the right. There we go. So just highlight that with your cursor, right-click, and copy that text, please. Let me know if you have any issues with that. Okay, and let's go back to InDesign. And we'll go to the type tool. And let's make some body text. So let's make a nice size square. And then right click paste inside of it. And we should have a big body of text inside that square. However, you look down in the bottom right, you got a little plus, and that means that there's more text than can fit in this box right now for us, okay? But I'll get to that more in a moment when we've got more pages. And inside here, you could go in, you could do any of your normal word processing stuff. You could type stuff in, remove stuff, make spaces. But I'm going to show you where you can change just about any possible thing with this text at all. I mean, everything. Change it. All right. I think we're about ready for a new page. What do you guys say? A new page. Before I do that, everybody good? Anyone need any help or have any questions? Okay, I want you guys to look up in the top right. You should have a tab called Pages. I want you to click that. Okay. And these up here, the master and that particular setting, don't worry about this just yet. I want you guys to go down to this area here, which is a little bit lower. And you could do two things. You could right-click, insert pages, or you could click this little new page button down in the lower right corner. Not the trash can, but the new page button. Click it a few times. You can get some more pages. Now, take note, a lot like you can arrange for in PowerPoint, this here is essentially a thumbnail for your workspace over here. So now you're going to be doing a lot of scrolling up and down, moving around between the pages. You may even want to zoom out a little bit, okay? You can do that with the zoom tool. Sometimes you'll want to be close in, sometimes you'll want to back out, kind of be further away, okay? All right. Now, let's do this. If you go back to the type tool, I want to show you a cool little trick. Actually, don't go to the type tool, go to the select tool. Everybody still has that little red plus in the lower right corner, right? Okay. Go to your select tool, and I want you to get to where you can see that and another page. Okay. And with your select tool, which is the black arrow, I want you to go up there and I want you to click the plus. You may have to click it twice. And once you've done that, you should sort of see, actually attached to your cursor, a block of text, right? You should see what I've got up on the board. Well, you can take that and you can go down and make a continuing text box. All right. Now, let me arrange mine a little bit better here to show you how cool this is. Okay. So these are connected, these two, and they can go infinitely. Watch this. If I go to my type tool and I go in here and I say I want a few spaces here, check this out. I'm hitting return, I'm hitting enter. They're connected. Like a train. It's pretty neat. That's infinite. So if you had body copy that would run like a book or a magazine article, and it could go around each and everything, okay? Just showing you a couple tricks.
I'm sorry, how did those link again?
Well, if there's too many, they it's automatically going to set you up for it.
Oh, okay.
Let me demonstrate again one
So
time
if
here.
you have overflow words, the next shape is going to show.
Well, if you hit that red plus with the select. So let me show you here. So I start populating that with the paste, but then I go up here, click the plus, and now it's automatically picking up where it left off and including the rest of it. If I do that, it still goes back to a remainder.
It's sort of small for now. Where's the plus sign again?
Hmm?
The plus?
Well, it's usually in the lower right corner.
Oh.
See, right there? That's what it'll look like. You're going to encounter it a lot, probably. But,
I'm so sorry I keep asking you. So now
You're
it's
fine.
got the plus sign, so what do you do next?
click it with the selection tool, the black arrow, and then it's already copied and ready to paste.
Okay.
Then you just make another text box
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
to continuate it. No, you're good. Because as you change the size of this and change the size of the font, say, you know, it's going to affect your spacing. If you've done text work in Publisher and PowerPoint and stuff, you've played with this dilemma of getting your text to fit, but yet be big if you need it to be, and all that kind of stuff. All right, cool. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. All right. So, we are going to look at just a couple more things, and then we'll be finished. I think we've gone through everything that we need to, and I think we've got a little bit of extra time. Okay. So, let me go ahead and do those things, and then I think we can talk about layers and background, and then also the pen tool maybe just for a minute. Okay. All right. So, oh yeah, I was going to show you one more thing. You can do this kind of fun stuff.
Now, when you do that, how do you set it so that those letters, right, are the words, right, are further from the circle?
There is a way. It's in there. It's somewhere up here in these menus.
It's, yeah, there.
There's also, I think it's under Window Type.
Text wrap?
Yeah, text wrap. Very good. Yep. And then there it is. This one right here. It's cool. That's how you can put pictures and stuff in. But guess what? You can also do this. Put it inside the shape. So just, I know, I've been going way ahead. You guys weren't supposed to be following this. I was just demoing. But any shape you have, if you take the type tool, click in on it, and then Command V to paste. Well, messed up there, but you click in with the type tool and then just paste your text or start typing, either or. So any shape can be a text box. And it will have that background color, but you could take that off by just picking the no color option. All right. Any questions before we go on?
So if you have leftovers, like text, when you copy to a shape like that, is there a way to grab that and move it to the next shape?
same exact way.
Okay.
Let me show you. Say this one's here.
If you want to do it in a circle.
Well, I can do that too. I'm going to delete what's in there now. Okay, so you would just click the red plus with the select tool, and then click inside the circle, and then look into infinity. I can just keep doing this all day. Just 2 clicks. Yep. You can even have them go backwards, but I don't see why you would want to. There's a way to see the path. Can't remember right now. Okay. Let's look at pages real quick, okay? So over here on our pages menu, right there, so you can move things around from page to page like this if you zoom out a little bit. This is a huge advantage. You can't do this kind of thing in Photoshop, like, at all, really. I mean, you have different artboards, but it's not the same. So that's huge. Over here, you've kind of got like a little mini version, okay, of your pages in this pages window. You can move them around too. So this is page 2. If I wanted to move that, all that down to the end, I can click on the little thumbnail of it, drag it down, and now, well, it didn't quite work, sorry. I want that at the end. There it is, now it's at the end. And everything just kind of readjusted, so now that bit is at the end. Make it more clear. We got one with a red cube I could do. Boom. You can arrange them that way. You can add a page in the middle, remove a page in the middle. Think of it like PowerPoint. Think of each page like a slide. It's basically the same thing. Okay? And I want to show you the master pages. So the master page is up here. What a master page does, it's not actually the page itself, it's not the main content on the page, but it's extra junk like the page number or a title of the book or anything that you want to flow onto every single page in your document. To start those out, first off, do you see all these here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those all have A in the corner. That means they're all referring back to this master page, our A version, our A option. But there's nothing on these yet. But there will be. Double click on them. And these 2, they're the master pages. Let's say, in my design, I want a blue circle kind of at the top of the right side of every page. All right? Double click back in here and it's put one on there. And you can create new master pages. It will be B. But you can name it anything. So they're basically anything that you want to constantly appear on every page without having to worry about actually putting it on every page. It's like an automatic. Constants. And any questions on that? Okay. All right. Let me talk about, it's like Abraham Lincoln bowling or something. Let me talk about background. So say I wanted a background for this page. Okay. Here's how I would do it at this point. If I already had stuff existing on here, here's what I would do. I would go over to layers and pretend I don't have that layer. So just have the one layer, all these different things on that layer, and the little eyeballs reveal them and hide them over in the layers window, and that little arrow collapses and expands. I want to create a new layer, but I want that layer, I'm going to drag it under. My red layer is on the bottom. And let me get a color of some sort. Oh, I didn't want to change him. Sorry. Okay. I want to put something at the back, at the bottom, so I'm going to get a rectangle. A green rectangle is going to be my background color. I'll drag it right there. And because I put it on that layer, it's automatically under all that stuff by itself. Okay? But the thing is, when you start working with this, and you start going in, clicking around, like I didn't want to move that. I wanted to move the Abraham Lincoln, right? Even if I'm on that layer, I could still accidentally switch layers if I click on the green thing first. And it can be very annoying, right? So what I would do is I would go to this layer here, and I would click right here to the right of the eyeball and lock it, and now I don't have to worry about interacting with it. It's there, and it's set, and it's not going to get disturbed.
I don't have one layer. How do you add a layer?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Down at the bottom, there's a little new button. It's the universal new button for Adobe next to the trash can. It'll usually put them, it's going to put it on top of the one you want. You're already on, but you can drag it. So since everything kind of lives on its own layer anyway, you're probably not going to need as many different layers as you would maybe in Photoshop to do the same thing. But if they're extremely different, like the background is, you can separate it out. So you can still see it, but not accidentally move it.
How do you, I can get it to drag?
No?
No, you just use your
Well, you just get a wig and a lot of makeup. And
your selection tool, and then you just click on it, and the little hand comes up, right? It won't go anywhere.
okay, try again.
Anywhere?
Click and drag. Down. We'll go down. Okay. Up a little bit.
Oh,
there.
no,
You
that-
want to see that little line.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Adobe's interface is tricky because it's all just like gray tones. Yeah. Actually, it looks cool though. Like a wanted poster.
Yeah, it does.
Totally. You can even download different strokes that would have the fiddle leaves and stuff. But it's easier to do that in Illustrator.
Yeah.
That's what Illustrator is really good at, cool strokes.
Just not, I just have a hard time with that.
Well, try to help you here.
I mean, I've taken the classes here, both of them.
Yeah.
I just, it's just tough.
Yeah, I know what you mean. All right, folks. I do have to mention something very important. Illustrator is not backwards compatible. That means if you created it, if you start the document and save it normally on an older version and then open it up in a new version, you're fine. If you're going from old to new, you're fine. But if you were working in new, try to open it up in old, won't work.
You mean
It's
InDesign?
InDesign only.
Okay, instead of Illustrator.
Sorry. No, I mean it. Sorry. Long day.
I have an old page maker at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's what it was before.
Oh, right.
It was a page
Well,
maker.
there's a workaround though.
Yep.
I do.
There's a workaround. If you go up to, instead of, is it save as? Yeah, okay. Save as this one.
Okay.
So it may not save you with PageMaker, but at least back to CS4 and beyond can open an InDesign markup language. Why they have it set this way, I don't know. It's such a pain. And it's gotten me before. It's gotten me. But it's nice there's an easy workaround. But, like, why do they even make you go to that trouble? I don't know. So that's good to know. And then, of course, always save often. When you go to save as, if you're not going to be changing version, that's fine. But you never know. You might save it as that. More universal. And also, like I mentioned, export. You decide where you're going to save it. Yeah, that's fine. What it's named. But here's where you get to the interesting stuff. There are all these options for the way your PDF is going to be. And I don't know everything about all of these. It's complex. But it mostly controls how your the resolution of your photos, things like that. Now, if you look up at the top, like I mentioned, there are some good presets. There are these. High quality print, that's going to be big, but it's going to be sharp, nice images. Go down to press quality or smallest file size, you're going to be looking at something a little bit different. Okay. Once it's a PDF, it's a PDF. It's not coming back into an Illustrator document. So you're probably going to want to save your InDesign document. I said Illustrator again, didn't I? You're probably going to want to save your InDesign document as well, so you can always go back and adjust it. So we can see that this is a pretty, whoa. And that's not bad resolution, right? Another thing, there's different display performances. If I right click on this and I go down to display performance, right now it's high quality. If I go to fast, it does that to it. Don't freak out. What that's doing is it's just simplifying the shape so it can run faster, so it doesn't have to like worry about displaying all the pixels and stuff. It's just making it like a square again. You know, we know this is still Lincoln, we're just substituting it for something simple. Okay. But if I go in here and I export this, yeah, and I go down to smallest file size, let's see what we end up with. Whereas the Lincoln may not look too great. Open up the PDF. Well, he doesn't look too bad. But it can affect your image quality, believe me. Yeah, he is lower. See how that, okay, that is very different from what I'm about to show you here. But if you're that far back, probably doesn't matter, and you got a smaller size. We usually think of PDFs as small, because they usually are. But you can create some gigantic, like gigabyte-sized PDFs. You wouldn't really need to, because a PDF is supposed to be compressed and small most of the time. You know what I mean? The InDesign document and your TIFFs or your PSDs, for example, are what you want to keep big and uncompressed. But you know, if you pump all the high res in there, it can get big. Yeah. Okay.
What's the password for the survey?
Oh, Lexington 1. Yes, in the survey that she mentioned, if you look down in the lower right corner of your screen, down on the dock near the trash can, there's a white page looking thing with the Safari compass in it. And if you click that, you'll come to the survey, which I would love for you guys to take if you wouldn't mind.